Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And I also hope that this information is useful and that after this presentation can get out of here being experts in terms of your civil basic rights so you can share your information with all of your community. So in terms of our organization for the I work with, I am Julissa Peña, and I am the director of the Legal Defense Center, or which is the Legal Defense Center, and we are an organization who doesn't charge for its services for the people who doesn't have the resources in order to hire a private attorney. So today, I would like to inform everyone not only about our services, but also about the organizations with whom we collaborate and what are the different services that each of those agencies provide to the community for you guys to have and to know where to go whenever you need assistance. And also, and I would like to inform everyone about your basic rights, your basic civil rights, in terms of the possibility of you guys having an encounter with immigration in different places, maybe at your home, in the streets, or maybe while you're driving. So these are the programs that we have in our organization. We have different several nonprofit organizations in Santa Barbara County that provide services, legal services under immigration law. But immigration law are very complicated, and they cover different areas. So our focus is to represent people who are in process of being deported, people who are actively fighting for their case at the immigration court. So we provide deportation defense for people who possibly have been arrested in the interior here in the United States and detained at a detention center. So those people who we try for them to offer legal services to see if they qualify for some protection so they can get out of this detention center and be stay at the country in the country permanently. So also for the people who are in the process of being deported that are actively fighting for their deportation case, maybe families that have requested asylum at the border and that then came here to Santa Barbara County with their families or friends, and those people who request asylum at the border are automatically put in deportation process. That doesn't mean that they are going to get deported, but it means that they have to fight their case at the immigration court. And the other group that we also represent is the immigrant children who are not accom- um, companioned, who also request protection at the border, and that they also rejoin with their family members in the county here, and they also are put in automatically in their immigration process, and they have to fight for the immigration case. And those are the three different groups with whom we work with. And so there's a difference between what's we have two pathways. When one wants to request protection or some sort of immigration relief, you are going to be placed into different pathways depending on the way you enter the country. So the way in which we provide services is the defensive pathway. The other pathway is affirmative. So here we have organizations, and also we have them here, I believe. For example, Importa, they provide legal services for immigrations for those who are in the affirmative route. And those who are in the affirmative route are those who don't have to fight their case in the immigration court. It's it's a more relaxed case in the sense that they can request everything or through documents through mail. They don't have to fight physically the case at the immigration court. So those are the cases that are in the affirmative right. So for example, maybe it's someone who entered without an inspection at the border, or maybe that they don't enter legally, and immigration doesn't know that you are here. So that happened to him, and maybe that happened. If it happens that way, maybe you can request the affirmative waive. So maybe you can arrange it to obtain your legal permanent residency through your affirmative route. The other program that we offer is community education, which is exactly what I'm doing here. Whenever we have availability, what we do is go to the community and try to inform everyone through about your civil rights, so you guys can know how you can defend yourselves if you have an encounter with immigration in the community. And the last one is that recently we implemented this program, this therapy program, and navigation resources for because children that come, immigrant children that come here without a companionship, come here with a lot of traumas, and mostly all of the families that we help, because of the trip is very difficult, the journey is very difficult. So we implement this program in order to provide health, mental health therapy for to those people. So, but that's only to those who are we are representing in their immigration or deportation case. So, in order to not confuse anyone, this program, I am not going to explain it right now, because also we only have only one immigration protection that we represent in the affirmative route. But I'll explain it. I explain that later in order to not confuse you. I never have so much help, so I really feel professional today here. So this is what I just explained. We have the affirmative route, and we have the defensive route.
So we're going to go over what would be your rights in your workplace, in your home, or out in the street, or even out if you're driving. So some of the common tactics that immigration uses to manipulate, to intimidate, and to really get the information about your immigration status. Sometimes they don't know for sure if you are undocumented or not. So we will have information about the different warrants. This is a different way in which ICE tries to lie, trying to deceive people to make them think that they have a legal warrant under their name from a judge. And most of the time, that is not the case. And lastly, what documents do you need to have on hand in case you or any family member is arrested? So it's important for us to have that information ready to go. And that way we can move your case forward a lot faster, because if you are arrested and you're at the detention center, things move very quickly. And people that are fighting their deportation case outside of the deportation center, it's important for you to have that documentation ready to go. Next slide. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that you all are well informed because we have, this program that provides services to immigrant communities. They've been publishing with social media. They've been spreading the word about the common tactics that ICE uses. What does that look like? What are your rights? So immigration, usually these agents, and they look very similar to the police, but they are in charge of enforcing the immigration laws within the country. However, there are little things that are happening this time around with this administration, with this presidential administration. For the first time, we are seeing that immigration, and they usually don't have a uniform that identifies them, but also the Border Patrol. They're collaborating. It's like a mixture of the uniforms and the collaboration. So these ICE officers work within the country, but they're also collaborating with Border Patrol officers. And in that way, they're escalating their deportation methods within the country. And the reason why they're able to do that is because they're closing the borders. So there are officers that are now available because since they're not allowing people to ask for asylum, they're now moving those officers to the enforcement work within the country. All right, next slide. So these 5 things, if you forget about everything else, the most important thing is that you remember these 5 things. These are your basic rights, and they seem to be very simple. And I know that things are not easy, but I'm going to tell you this is working. Immigration officers are very frustrated because people really are using their rights. And that's why they're becoming more aggressive and more intimidating. And that's because they haven't been able to meet their quotas that have been given to them because they're not able to manipulate people as they were able to do that before. So I will ask you to always learn your rights and use your rights because they do work. Remember, you have a right to use your right to remain silent. That means that you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't show false documents, never do that. But you do have the right to say, I'm going to use my right to remain silent. And if they ask you to confirm where somebody else is, you can say that same phrase. You can say, I choose to use my right to remain silent. And number 2, you have the right to deny any kind of search from ICE. Whether they want to search you, you can tell them that you do not consent to being searched. You do not consent for them to search your home or your vehicle. If they're trying to do it without your consent, you should let them know that they do not have your consent to do that, because that information many times helps us stop a deportation. And the 3rd one says you have the right to not open the door when ICE knocks on your door. What I always tell people is that the best thing you can do is not open the door. Because if they truly do have a warrant signed by a judge, they're going to knock the door down. But if they don't have it, they're going to have to leave. So the best thing to do is to not open the door. The next one, number 4, you have the right to not sign a document without speaking to a lawyer. So they're going to try to intimidate you, to manipulate you, to lie to you. These agents are trained to lie because what they want is to deport as many people as possible. But many times they are not experts in immigration laws. They don't know the laws. They don't know if you qualify for a protection. So don't sign anything without speaking to an immigration attorney or a legal representative, someone who is accredited by the Justice Department. And the last thing is what I just mentioned. You have the right to speak to an attorney. And also, if you are detained, you have the right to communicate with your consulate. And many times, the consulate officers will then contact us. Next slide. All right, so why is it important for you to know your rights and use your rights? Well, because we can avoid an arrest. We can avoid someone being detained. Sometimes people contact me and they're having an interaction with immigration attorneys and they're speaking to me on the phone and I'm guiding them on the phone about their rights. And the immigration officers end up leaving, not just because I was there on the phone, but because that person was using their rights. So that really can prevent an arrest. All right. And then the other thing, many times the immigration officers don't actually know your immigration status. They might have some information about you, but sometimes they make it seem as if they have all of the information and if they know for sure that you are undocumented, just to see if you yourself will admit it. And then they use that information against you. So that's why it's so important for you to not say anything. And also, we can limit the collaboration between the sheriff's office and ICE. There's many times communication between these two agencies. And so we recommend that if you are in danger and yes, if you need the police, call the police. But if there are moments where the police, more than anything, the sheriff's department would participate, if it's sometimes the sheriff's department collaborates with ICE. So that's why it's best to not share that kind of information because we do know that the sheriff's department shares information with ICE. The other thing is that we all must know that even if you have used your rights and you've done everything correctly, but immigration still detains you, you need to know what is not allowed, because all of that is going to help us to defend your case. And we can also sue them for violating your rights. But that's why we need the community to know the information so that we can sue them. If we see certain patterns, and if they are violating rights repeatedly, then we can bring a case against them. Next page. And I just realized that there's an interpreter, so I might be speaking too fast. Okay, so we're going to skip that one. This one is very important. So Kenya has these sheets that we have. The thing that I don't want you to forget is know how to determine what is a real warrant that's signed by a judge and be able to identify something that is not a real warrant. So let's say that immigration knocks on your door. So what are you going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do if they knock on your door? Don't open the door. Okay, very good. Don't open the door. And when you are inside of your home, you have to ask them to identify themselves. What immigration can do is they can say, we're the police, because they have a vest that says police. And sometimes under that, it says ICE. Sometimes it says that, sometimes it doesn't. So that's why it's important for you to confirm. They need to confirm if they are the police or if they are ICE agents. If they say, oh, we're police, and you need to ask them, are you immigration or are you like a local police department? And if you don't get a clear answer and you think that it might be the police, still don't open the door. If you haven't called the police and if you're not in danger, don't open the door. The next thing they're going to ask you is what? I'm going to give you a test after this. The next thing that they will ask you, what will that be? Okay, so what are you going to ask them? Who are you? And then the next question that you will ask is, do you have a warrant? Do you have a warrant that's been signed by the judge? And if they say, yes, we have one, you can say, okay, slip it under the door. If you don't have a little area or a space where they can slide it under, just have them give you the form somehow, maybe through the window, under the door, something like that, so that you can see if it's a real warrant. Okay, so this that you see here on the screen, you're going to have something similar. We're going to have to learn a little bit of this piece, and the circle at the bottom. One of the most important things is that you confirm that this warrant has been signed by a judge. It must have the word judge, and it must show the name of the judge. So you need to confirm that it says judge at the bottom. And that means that a warrant has been signed by the judge. The other thing that you need to confirm, and what else do you have to confirm? What would you say you have to confirm? What does that warrant need to have in order to be valid? The name of the person that they're looking for. They need to have the correct address. So name, address, and a date. And the reason the date is important is that this warrant cannot be older than 14 days. So you're going to have to calculate, do a little bit of math. And if it's older than 14 days, it's no longer valid. And this is the reason for why 90% of the time, they don't have a warrant that's signed by a judge, because normally these warrants are used to arrest people that are an immediate danger in society. So if there's a reason for why they need to arrest a person immediately, that's why they create these warrants. But most of the time, they're not going to have this warrant. But they're going to try to make you think that they do have a valid warrant. Okay, so once again, in order for the warrant to be valid, it has to have what? The first thing, most important, the signature of the judge. Second thing, the name of the person that they're looking for, and the address has to be correct. And the date. Okay, so the date and the judge's signature. So remember the date, 14 days. The warrant is valid for 14 days. Okay, so next slide. Would this form that you see on the screen be valid? Is this a real warrant signed by a judge? No. Who is it signed by? Who signed this document? Okay, so if there were a signature here, whose signature would it be? It would be immigration's signature. But do they have the ability to issue warrants? Are they judges? Are they lawyers? No. So they cannot take the decision to issue a warrant or to sign a warrant. So they don't have that power. ICE officers don't have that power. Only a judge will have that power. So many times what ICE officers do is they print out these forms, they fill it out, and they sign it themselves. Sometimes they don't even put the person's name, but they just give them the form and they say, yes, I do have this warrant for arrest, and it says that you are a danger to society and we're going to arrest you. So you have to pay attention to that. You have to determine if it's valid or not. Okay, so I'm going to give you a test. Next slide, next slide.
Immigration arrives, they knock on your door, and what are you going to do? You're going to ask, who are you? And if they say that they're the police, what are you going to do? Why are you here? Are you guys the police, or is it immigration? They need to let you know, because sometimes they say they're the police and they're not. But sometimes it's difficult because sometimes there are detectives that they don't use uniform, and it seems like they're the police, but they aren't. The next thing, what are you going to ask? They say you're going to ask them if they have a judicial document signed by a judge, and you are going to let them please pass it through underneath the door or through the window, and then when you see, and it's if it says immigration official, what are you going to say? What are you going to answer if you determine that that's not valid? What are you going to say? Let's see. Yeah, you're going to say this is not a judicial order, it is not valid, and it is not signed by a judge, so you need to leave. This is a private property, which is your house or your apartment. This you need to leave. And yes, if they enter by the force and you said that this is not a valid order, then that would be a very good case to file a report. So please do not open the door. This is when it gets more difficult in order to protect, because you're in a public place, and when you're in a public place, immigration can only needs to have a suspicion that you are a danger to society or to the community. They don't really need an order, but you can still request it, and also you can still exercise your rights, because they don't always have the certainty that you are not legal. So if you have an encounter with immigration where you're walking, or if you're in the at the park, and an immigration agent approaches you, or someone that looks like an immigration agent, sometimes they are going to ask your name, or maybe they're going to shout whatever name, or maybe they're going to get your name through some other way, and they would try to let you know that they know you. And if they don't you have the right to not give them your name and nor your identification. So if you're in a public place while you're walking, you don't have any reason to give them your identification or your documents. So if someone approaches you, let's say immigration, and they shout your name or say your name, you only ask them, why are you approaching me, or why are you trying to detain me? And if they don't give you a reason or don't say anything, then you're going to let them know you I am free to go. And if you're asking them questions, what are you going to say? I am I am not obligated to speak. I want to stay in silence. I won't share my information nor my documents because I am free to go. Sometimes, majority of time, you are able to leave, but if they are trying to arrest you by the force, you can still repeat, I am going to stay in silence. I want to exercise my right. I want to speak to my attorney. But of course, if right now you also have an immigration case already open, then in that moment you have to let them know, I have an immigration attorney, I have an open case, and I would like to communicate or get in contact with my attorney. But that information, don't give it to them in a immediate way. Just wait until they have the certainty that you are not legal, because they don't always know that. We know that they stop people while they're driving. Almost all of the calls we have received or encounters with immigration have been with while people are driving or while they are at home. So there are places in which we can protect ourselves a little bit more. So ICE can stop you, and when they approach your window, what you have to do is to turn off the car, put your parking, and put your hands on your steering wheel. And if you can, if you have your phone, call an emergency contact, because maybe someone can can send someone to observe what's happening. And a lot of time, those people are people that can arrive in time, and they can prevent an arrest, because sometimes in those situations immigration are they don't tend to violate immigration law, because they have someone recording them, so they feel a little bit more of pressure, and they feel obligated to do what they're supposed to. So if you're in your car, don't roll down your window completely, just a little bit. And maybe because they want to request your identification. So only the person who's driving is obligated to share or give them their driving's license, but not the person who is in the passenger seat. The person in the passenger seat is not obligated to give them anything, and they can just simply say, I am just going to respect the right of not sharing anything and to remain in silence. The last case we had here in Santa Barbara is someone who got stopped while driving, and we were able to prevent that person to get arrested. They only rolled down their window a little bit. They didn't request their driving's license. They wanted just to arrest them, because he had already been approached with the by the authorities. He had been arrested by or caught by while drinking while driving. But there have been people who have been had DUIs, and they don't always have a judicial order signed with by a judge. So they complied with what they had to. And but now, in terms of the arrest priorities, everyone who had encounters with the criminal system are those who have been trying to get arrested because of their information, and their information might be updated, which is easier for them. But that doesn't mean that they don't have rights, and it's more probable that they don't have a judicial form signed by a judge, because whatever happened, it maybe it had happened a lot of years ago. So I was in the phone, and I was reminding them, and he was repeating everything that what I was saying to the immigration officer, and they got very mad, and they were trying to manipulate the situation, and they were saying stuff like, "Oh, you're not enough man. We open the door. Maybe just." And I was letting the sir know, don't open the door, don't roll down your window, because if they don't have a judicial form or order signed by a judge, they cannot open your door. So sometimes, if you don't have a judicial order signed by a judge, the other reason they can say they are going to forcibly open your door is that, for example, they feel that maybe they are in danger, or they have an excuse to say that they enter by the force because they felt they were in danger. So that's why I remember everyone that only let your steering wheel, your hands in the steering wheel, so to not give them a reason to for them to feel that they were in danger. So you have to remind them that you're not going to allow them to re- search your car or yourself. We're almost in here. So these are some of the tactics. These are the ones we talked about. This about the administrative orders. They are not valid, only the judicial ones. The other ways they try to get the people is that they say that they are the local police, and they're trying to provide or make an investigation, and they can say, well, ICE maybe we believe that the identity of some person was robbed, and we need your help. We are trying to identify someone because that person is a danger to the community. Can you come outside for a moment, or can please speak to you for a moment, because I think someone is in danger. Don't open your door. You just try to identify who are they. And if they they sometimes call a phone, especially for to those who have been arrested recently. So they have their phone number, and they are trying to gather more information in terms of the people with whom you live. So let's say you receive a call, and they are trying to request this legal status of those who live with them. So don't share any information. So let's say in the worst case scenario, and let's hope that doesn't happen, that you or someone you know has been arrested. So the first thing you must do is wait for a call of that person. Probably that person is going to communicate with you during the afternoon or the next day. And when that person communicates with you, you're going to ask them if they have been told if they are going to be sent to the detention center. Other thing very important to ask them in order to help the attorneys to try and evaluate the case more quickly is a number. That number is the one number you get assigned for those who have a deportation case. So those who are arrested, they get assigned an a number, and it has 9 digits. So if you have that, you try to get that number and then share that information with an attorney, so that the attorney with that number can get in contact with immigration in order to get in contact with the person who's detained. The other thing is that you have to have a family plan. I know it's not easy to implement a plan, but it is very important to have a family plan, not only because of this, because of any emergency that can happen, specifically if you have children. Just be prepared, and you have a plan prepared in which you have all of the emergency numbers, for example, of the two parents and of any other family member which you trust.
Okay, so documents that are important to have. Make sure that you have your birth certificate. Have a copy that's legible, and also your marriage certificate if you're married, having your pay stubs. If you have some kind of document that verifies that your students or children are enrolled in school. And also think about who can provide letters of support, who can speak to your good character. Many times when people are arrested, the first thing that we want to do is try to get them out under bail. But in order for them to qualify to be let out under bail, we have to have people in the community that can speak to their character, to their good character and good citizenship. And also, like, if you have connections in church, organizations, nonprofits, if your kids are citizens or residents, and like if someone that's very, very vulnerable in your family depends on you, like a child with special needs. And so if you are the caretaker for a minor or for a citizen, that's important to know. So if you do have an open immigration case, try to have all of these documents at hand to be able to share them with your attorney quickly. Next slide. Okay, so I think this is the last one. So this organization that you see up on the screen, ACLU, they take a lot of cases that are lawsuits against the immigration department. And so that's why it's important for you to know your rights, because you need to be able to distinguish when are your rights being violated and when they're not. Because the ACLU takes on cases where they sue immigration for violating the rights of people. There was a case in Los Angeles. Immigration invaded a home and they came through many different entrances without having a warrant. And there was a camera that captured everything. And then the person that was home said that they told them not to enter. And they lost that case in Los Angeles. And it was a large sum of money. I'm not exactly sure how much, but it was a large sum of money that they had to pay. And so we also have an alert system in the community. So if you haven't signed up, you can sign up to the number on the screen. And also, if you want to report the presence of ICE, so the phone number is 805-870-8855. And we have the flyers outside, and it gives you instructions on how to sign up for these alerts. And so these organizations will make sure that before sending out an alert, they will go and confirm if it truly is immigration. That way people aren't afraid of leaving their home, because sometimes a lot of information is shared that is not accurate. So this team is trained to go and confirm if in reality immigration ICE officers are out there in the community. So remember, know your rights and exercise your rights. And also, a very important organization that we collaborate with is called Importa. And they take cases And this is their phone number up on the screen, but they're here outside if you want to speak to them and if you need their help. The other thing, I didn't include it in the slides, but that's the last slide. That's it, right? Yeah, that's the last slide. Yeah, so that was the last slide. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, since we are in a school, and a lot of people don't know about this, but young people younger than 21 years of age, if they are undocumented and if they're not married, they can qualify for a protection. That is the only protection that we do provide services for. If these are children, minors that were brought to this country at a very young age, or any child who came as a migrant, unaccompanied, and perhaps lives with none of their parents or only one of their parents, in order for them to qualify for this protection, it's called special status for young people. It's also known as SIGIS. To qualify for that protection, the young person needs to be under 21 years of age, not be married, and live with only one parent or no parent, and perhaps have suffered some kind of abuse or neglect by one parent or both parents. And it would not be in their best interest to be deported, because here is where they have the support of their family. So these young people that are under 21 years of age, that maybe lost a parent to death or something similar, they would be able to request this type of protection. And they could get a residency, and then after 5 years, they could get their citizenship. So this situation is much better than what existed in the past, which was DACA, because DACA never really opened the door to become a permanent legal resident. But this other protection does allow young people to gain their residency. So in case you do know young people that might qualify for that protection, you can send them to our office.